supporters and listeners to Martin Barna podcast. Today, I have a very, very special guest for you, and it is Mrs. Holly Baxter Norton. Hello, Holly. How are you today?
Hi, I'm really good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I am really glad that you accepted my invitation. Mrs. Baxter Norton is a heavy involvement in numerous sports over the years, combined with a strong interest in health and well-being, and extensive research in the field of nutritional sciences has led her to extend her skills set to the fitness industry, where she educates others, as well as actively coaching fitness physique athletes and bodybuilding. Despite recent international success, claiming 2 world championships level wins in 2015 for natural fitness modeling, Holly also has a strong personal interest in functional HIIT training with a background in athletics, especially track sprints during her junior school years and university careers. She believes the real challenge lies in developing the body to be able to perform specific skills. And if I am not mistaken, Holly is now trying to lose muscle, which is a very interesting topic. Is it right?
Yes, it is. Probably opposite to most people.
I saw on your Instagram. Why are you losing muscle?
That's a really good question, since I would say 99% of the people that I work with and educate are trying to do the opposite. So I think because I have had such a lengthy time and career in the sport of bodybuilding and trying to perfect that, I can say confidently I have achieved a great amount of muscle. However, I think as my life has started to change and I'm definitely a little bit more focused on my career and business, trying to first off maintain that level of muscularity has been challenging from a time perspective. So in order for me to get to the muscularity that I have, my typical training sessions were probably about 90 minutes, and I was doing it about 5 days a week. So, between driving to the gym, training, coming home, kind of getting yourself ready for, your day's work, it was just taking up a lot of time. And I think to try and continue to do that consistently, I found that very challenging. So that was the first thing. It was kind of getting in the way of my career goals. And then secondly, being able to maintain a lean, like very low body fat percentage that I liked seeing that level of muscle at, was also a little unrealistic. So when I do put on body fat after I've competed, I am a bigger body because I've got all that muscle underneath. But then when you put on a little bit of body fat, I just felt kind of big. So I think for me, it's kind of dual faceted. I want to be able to maintain a fit physique, but without quite so much muscle so that I can wear regular clothes and just feel good about my body comp. So yeah, I've been actively trying to lose muscle now for about 6 months. And I basically am doing everything opposite that the average person would do. So yeah, it's been interesting.
How is it going? Did you lose some muscle, or is it?
I have. So I recently went and had a DEXA scan, and I think I've lost, sadly, only about a 1.5 pounds of lean muscle. But I'm also starting to see some of the, I guess, decreases in strength, which would be indicative of muscle loss. So that's kind of the main guide that I'm working towards just day to day when I'm in my training. If I can see that my strength is starting to come back, I'm probably losing some muscle. But it is an interesting thing to consider, because once we've acquired a lot of muscle, it's actually somewhat easier to maintain. So the amount of training volume that I've had to cut out has been like significant. So I'm struggling to do that little, which is why it's taking me so long to lose the muscle. I still train 4 days a week, but my sessions are significantly shorter. But, based on some of the research that I have read about muscle loss, one of the studies in particular suggests that you need to do about a ninth less training volume than you would typically do before you start to see significant muscle loss. So the study actually referenced a training group that were doing no training for a 16-week study period. Another group did about a third less training volume than normal. And then there was a group that did a ninth of their normal volume. And interestingly, the group that did a third less still had muscle gain. So it's just an interesting thing to consider. So for those of you out there that are working really hard to get muscle, know that once you've got it, it's kind of tough to lose.
I think you are one of the few person who are searching for research on how to lose muscle. It's kind of fun.
If there was someone, it would be me. Yes.
Anyway, what does your day looks like? I see that now you are more of a coach, entrepreneur, let's say,
yep.
Less of an athlete, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal athlete goals or competition bodybuilding goals have definitely taken a back seat. It's primarily just because if I have to pick something right now, business is going to be the most valuable for my time as far as it helps to helping other people. And that's my biggest thing. I enjoy the sport, but I also want to help lots of people. So that's kind of why I put my personal goals on the back. But yeah, so now typically I am doing a little bit of coaching. I only do 2 days a week of one-on-one coaching. That's usually like a 6-hour stretch of the day. But outside of those 2 days of the week, I have so many different things that I do. My husband and I, we have not only our Team BioLane coaching business, so we manage a team of coaches. And with that company, we have media and graphics personnel. We have staff that kind of are working on the day-to-day, and we have a board of directors as well. So there's a lot of meetings and phone calls and strategizing, and we're on meetings often that are kind of mapping out marketing campaigns and looking at business finances. So unfortunately, there's a lot of business stuff, which isn't necessarily my favorite thing to be doing day to day. I love the coaching aspect and getting my hands on, a new study and then being able to kind of write about it and continue learning. But most of the time at the moment, so for the other 3 business days, is either on calls, I'm communicating with our staff, I'm revising captions for graphics, I'm writing, books, or we're developing new products with our supplement line. So the diversity of my day is crazy. And of course, we've got 2 young kids as well that are 5 and 8. So we're typically up pretty early on those mornings and getting ready for the day. So there's a lot.
It sounds kind of exciting to build something with your partner, I never did this. Is it so fulfilling as it sounds?
You know what? I think one of the main reasons that I absolutely love Lane, my husband, is because he is so passionate about, helping people achieve, optimal health. So I know, like, when I was younger, I would date guys and, I was very much into them as a person. And, we had lots of fun together, but there was always a bit of a disconnect when it came to being able to confidently support each other and our endeavors. And certainly for a lot of guys, and I would say, anyone listening, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is probably a little bit of ego when it comes to a relationship, because I know for a lot of men, and I've had conversations with, mates of mine that, to be married to or dating a female or woman that is so, headstrong and committed to their job and a hard worker, it can be very intimidating. And also there's a little bit of ego that goes along with that too. So it's been awesome to have Lane because he is so supportive and he's right there by my side, pushing through it. In fact, I'm probably the the bigger rah rah, let's do this next goal. What are we doing now? Like, I'm the visionary of the company, and he's the brake. So yeah, I'm the accelerator. He's the brake.
That sounds great. And how would you recommend to our listeners to support each other? They are partners in fat loss, in muscle gain, and also in business. How do you support each other with your husband?
Yeah, so it is honestly very difficult. I know one of the things that we were going to talk about today was, having a partner that's also like doing fat loss together, and trying to do, competitions, and how can we support each other through those types of things. And if I'm being honest, I probably wouldn't recommend couples diet together, especially if you have a large number of responsibilities, whether it's a demanding job, or you've got a family to take care of. I think that it can be very helpful for both couples, both people in the relationship, to have experience with tracking macros, to at least like gain perspective from the other person while they're dieting. But doing that together, it actually can be tough. And Lane and I have done that once, and I can tell you now we will not be doing it again, because it's hard even for like the experts, and when you're following a scientific principle. So, there's still a lot of misinformation out there, and I can't imagine how much harder that would make it when you're following, some kind of fad diet, and trying to do it dogmatically, So, I probably would say, communication is always the most important thing, and setting expectations with each other. I know for Lane and I, we certainly talked about, all of our roles and responsibilities when we're at work. Like, this is before we started dieting. And I think one of the things that we actually do for each other is that if he's a little bit underwater with work or personal, like, I'll step in and take on that, role for him, and vice versa. And then also we would talk about that as it related to like household chores, like, what are our responsibilities in our home? Because undoubtedly, the leaner that you get when you're competing or dieting, so not just for bodybuilding competitors, but for anybody, all of those symptoms of dieting progressively get worse, and it becomes harder and harder. So you're both really hungry, you're both really food focused, you're both irritable, short-tempered, your sleep starts to become affected, and it's really hard. So I think for couples, making sure that you're both communicating well, and being really honest, and just setting up some expectations about workload and what you can realistically manage when you're dieting together is really important.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Are there any specifics in PCOS in women when we are talking about dieting or bikini prep?
PCOS?
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry for the pronunciation.
That's
yes.
okay. That's okay. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Yeah, so that's an interesting question. PCOS, I spent a little bit of time reading about this actually, because I thought that I had it when I was younger. I did not, which is kind of a good thing, because there are unfortunately a lot of challenges for people that have PCOS. But there has been a lot of talk recently about low carbohydrates being a better dietary preference or choice for women that do have that condition. And I think, while it's true that insulin resistance can contribute to PCOS, it doesn't actually mean that the low carb diet is best for people that are suffering with PCOS. In fact, when we look at calories and protein being matched between two different diet types, both have actually been demonstrated to significantly improve insulin resistance long term. So, it does appear that like just reducing your body weight can improve PCOS symptoms, and that is regardless of the diet type. And similarly to just the average person that's not suffering with PCOS, it also seems that a high protein diet can actually do wonders for someone, and even perhaps better than just weight loss alone. So Yeah, I think there is a bit of a misconception for women that have that condition that they need to all of a sudden drop carbs, that they're the devil and they can contribute to insulin resistance. It's actually untrue. So, yeah.
So you would apply let's say, the same things as with other women. There are no,
Yes,
let's say,
absolutely. So,
two specific things for, yeah.
The best type of diet for someone with PCOS is the same type of diet, honestly, that works for everybody else. And that means that you still need to be consistent, still need to work hard, be active, and I guess find a diet style or an approach that you can adhere to consistently. So that's why we have success. We have people achieving such success on all kinds of diet types. We see people who absolutely swear by a ketogenic diet, a very low carb, high fat, high protein diet. We have people having success on intermittent fasting. If it works for them and their lifestyle, that's, and they're able to be consistent with it, that is truly one of the most important things. And that can lead to weight loss and that can help to improve insulin resistance. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any specifics, or let's say, are there any misunderstood myths, mainly for male coaches, we are talking about menstruation and fitness dieting? Are there some do you adjust somehow the training and the nutrition during menstruational cycle of a woman?
Yeah, so you know what? It's interesting about that topic too. There is a lot of subjective data where participants will be asked to complete a questionnaire, and then how that might actually implicate their menstrual cycle on metrics like their strength and their performance. And honestly, the results are really all over the place. I think it's important to kind of define, I guess, how the menstrual cycle works and why it might potentially pose problems for females, or not problems, challenges for women when we get our cycle. And I think to best do that, it's just to give a bit of a background on how that works. So throughout our menstrual cycle, sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone, are going to change. And generally speaking, estrogen is generally perceived as the good hormone, and progesterone, and though it's not inherently bad, it's kind of perceived as the not so good sex hormone. And progesterone actually counters a lot of those positive effects that estrogen has on the body. And the positive role of estrogen is that it is glycogen sparing. So that means that it can actually help with our recovery. And it's also involved in reducing some of the acute inflammatory response after training. So to help people really understand how they might adjust their training around their menstrual cycle, I'll explain a little bit how the menstrual cycle works, because it explains the data that we have on it. So in the first phase of our menstrual cycle, it's called the follicular phase. And at that time, estrogen and progesterone are both very low. And then the second phase of the menstrual cycle is called the luteal phase. And that is when progesterone begins to increase. And then they both drop down at the time of menses. So the research has actually shown that during the follicular phase, that's when the progesterone levels are low, our training for females seems to go a little bit better. There was one randomized control study back in 2014 that was comparing both low training volumes and high training volumes at different phases of a female's menstrual cycle, and they were assessing strength and hypertrophy outcomes. And what they actually found was that including more training volume like early in that cycle rather than later in the cycle when progesterone's high seemed to have better results for both strength and muscle hypertrophy. So again, the researchers tend to discuss progesterone, and they kind of put that down to the fact that women were better able to recover when progesterone levels are low. So Again, kind of wrapping up that thought, I guess my practical takeaways here as it relates to training might be better for females to have training or their highest training volumes, heavier sessions, greater intensity during that follicular phase, the first phase, and maybe plan to have a deload around the time of their menstrual cycle or that week before. But again, there is a lot of data on this. I mean, there's probably 3 or 4 studies that I'm aware of that tend to have very mixed results, where it really was like a scatter plot. Like there was just results everywhere. So for women, I think it's important to be aware, but then, self-reflect, look at your training outcomes. How was your strength? How were those metrics? And then make that decision for themselves. So for me, I'm not too dogmatic about it. Again, it's pretty subjective, and I know I'll sometimes feel great even though I've got my cycle and my strength isn't altered in any way. But other times, again, it's probably like that stacking effect, where if you've got other stressful things happening in your life and you've got your cycle and you're moving house, all those types of things can probably contribute to training not going so well. But yeah, it's probably very subjective.
And how about if the menstruation comes when the girl is in a peak week before the competition? Is it a big
that's
problem?
a tough one. So I think, unfortunately, it is one of those things that you're just going to have to manage. I know there's a good percentage of women that will be taking some form of oral contraception. And if they're comfortable doing so, they may like to try and skip their period, which you can do by not taking some of the little sugar pills. But again, that's it's not advised. Is a reason that it's good to get your cycle. But I know I've done that when I was competing in the past. However, there is going to be a good percentage of females, especially if they're competing in like a higher level competition, that their body fat levels are so low that they're not actually getting their menstrual cycle now at all. So it tends not necessarily to be a big concern for like your top physique athletes, figure competitors. I know for me, mine's gone like weeks out before I actually have to get on stage. But for those that do get it, and unfortunately, it just sucks. One of the things that I would recommend to my clients is just reducing their total fiber amounts just a couple of days before. The GI tends to slow down a little bit, I guess, around our menstruation. So if you've got too much insoluble fiber, that is the fiber that's non-water absorbing, it's not osmotic. It is basically what kind of adds volume to your stool. That type of fiber can be problematic if your GI does begin to slow down, because it can contribute to some of that bloating and distended lower abdomen. So I will recommend cutting down fiber by about 50% on the final 2 days before their show day. And I actually recommend taking some kind of gut stimulant laxative just to make sure that everything gets out. And that there is a specific type of laxative that I would recommend and this is only if somebody is struggling with constipation. If their bowel habits are still normal and everything is all good, then there is no need to worry about it. But there certainly are a handful of women that will struggle with constipation. And I would recommend a stimulant-based laxative. And that's important because there are laxatives that are basically water absorbing, and they draw a bunch of water into your GI, and it can basically change not only I guess your digestion and the amount of water that's in your gut, but it changes where the water is sitting in your physique, and it can actually, I guess, make you look flat, because that water that was previously inside your muscle tissue, helping you to look nice and full, good shape to your muscle, it actually is drawn to the gut instead, which is not what you want for a stage. So fiber is important. And then I would also recommend just being extra mindful of any other food and beverages that are known gut irritants. So I'm not sure if your audience are familiar with irritable bowel syndrome or IBS, but those types of foods, they're FODMAPs, FODMAP. It's an acronym for basically a long list of different types of undigestible carbohydrates or fermentable carbohydrates. But just being very cautious of some of the FODMAP type foods. I won't go into detail too much there, but if anyone is curious about that, I do have a lot of information on my website, and I've got videos on YouTube that talk about FODMAPs and a full series on irritable bowel syndrome. But
perfect.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. I will look for this for sure.
Yeah.
Are there any supplements you would really recommend to, let's say, all high performance athletes? You know, the sure one that really works according to science. Let's say we know that creatine is it.
Yes. Okay. So it's an interesting question. I think that's that's saying all high performance athletes, that's kind of broad and generalized.
Okay.
I don't
fitness
think
athletes. Sorry, you're right.
Yeah. So I think
athletes.
Supplements to me aren't really something that are essential. And I think for most people listening in, honestly, they're probably not that important. If we start to work our way up to professional status and people that are maybe competing in the Olympics and they are already doing absolutely everything right, down to their, sleep hygiene, their diet's on point, their training is being optimized, their recovery is already optimized, they're minimizing stress, like all of those things, for an elite athlete, are usually already all being done, like they are focused. So in those situations, some of the competitors are very, similar in their, natural genetic capacity and their skills. So supplements are really just coming in to give you like the extra 1 or 2%. And truly that's all it is. So I think to respond to that, I would say, generally speaking, I don't say that any supplement is essential or, needed. But there are some that can confer very, modest benefits for different types of performances. So the ones that we recommend, and, shameless plug, we have a supplement company called Outwork Nutrition. And we really try to make sure that we're only recommending ingredients that have a really good amount of research to support their effectiveness. So the ones that we recommend, and I'm going to preface what I say here with, I'm speaking to the people that are really focused primarily on improving their body composition. They're looking to do some form of resistance training and kind of maximize their time spent in the gym. So from a pre-workout perspective, and I'll kind of break it up into those two things, pre-workout and post-workout or recovery, because there are typically two types of supplements that people are looking for. So if the ones that are going to elicit, acute responses in the gym would be your caffeine, number one. That's probably my favorite to use. That is acute, fast acting. It tends to get into the bloodstream very quickly. And I guess the recommended dose is somewhere between 1 to 5 grams per kilogram of body weight. So our supplement, for example, has about 350 milligrams for a serving, and that has been shown to help with performance in the gym. Another one that is really well studied and seems to be very effective is citrulline malate. The recommended dose for citrulline is about 6 grams per day. And once you've had it for about 15 days consistently, it tends to help with reducing fatigue. It can improve your recovery. Essentially what it is doing is helping to clear ammonium from the blood and our tissues, and that's a major factor in fatigue. So citrulline malate's a really good one. Beta-alanine, I personally don't enjoy beta-alanine's peripheral effects. It kind of gives you the tingly feeling in your fingers, your face, your neck, your ears. I don't like that, but I would say I'm probably the minority in this case. But basically, the recommended doses in studies that have been shown to be efficacious is somewhere between 2.4 and 6.4 grams per day. Beta-alanine basically acts as a hydrogen ion buffer. So it's able to improve our muscles' buffering capacity. And that can then have positive roll-on effects and improve the quality of our training and help increase the number of repetitions that can be performed at a given training intensity. What else do we like? I think we have L-Dopa in our pre-workout. That is really effective at increasing or improving mood. So I know for me, and focus and concentration. So for me, when I was doing those long workouts that I was telling you about before for 90 minutes, one of the things that really kind of got to me was not so much that I didn't have enough energy to do more sets. It was that, you know, my mind started to waver, and I would start thinking about what I had to do at home and what I'm having for dinner. So the L-Dopa was actually one of the best ingredients that I've had, because it really helped keep me focused on my training sessions. So that's another one. And I guess in conjunction with that, rhodiola. So that's also been shown to have performance benefits, and it can also help to improve our mood. That one has some adaptogenic properties, and it's involved in the HPA axis. I'm not sure if your audience have heard of that, but it's like a hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. And that's one of the key mediators in our body's stress response. So it can help to reduce our cortisol levels. So that's another one. It has a little bit less research, but for the few that we do have, it seems to be very positive. So that's kind of the ones that I would recommend for people that are, you know, in the gym lifting and wanting to get a little bit more out of their training. And then I guess I'll summarize the ones that we would use for recovery purposes. Like you said, creatine monohydrate, that is probably the most well-studied supplement that has by far the most scientific data to support its effectiveness. So basically that works by saturating the muscle cells with phosphocreatine, and the recommended dose for that is about 5 to 10 grams per day. So that one is by far the most popular, and that is also the best form. So creatine monohydrate is the one that's most bioavailable and can help to improve your performance.
Perfect.
There is a couple more. Betaine, I'll just reel them off. Tart cherry extract and ashwagandha. They're also ingredients that we've got in our recovery. They are all beneficial for helping to minimize fatigue, improve recovery speeds. Some of them basically help transport nutrients. They lead to vasodilation and increased nutrient delivery. Some of them are antioxidant. So there's a whole host of benefits from some of these ingredients if we look at the research that's available. So, yeah.
You are so very well prepared. It's crazy. Thank you, really. Okay, how to accept the fact that you really need to reverse diet, or let's say to maintain and not to lose fat, and how to, you know, accept your body in a, let's say, less ripped state. Is there some tips?
My goodness. So this is such a challenge for so many people. I mean, it takes a certain human just to agree to like, oh, I'm going to be okay with not losing weight first and foremost. I think probably 90% of women that I have ever worked with or spoken to have been terrified at the idea that they're not dieting, which just blows my mind. Oh my gosh, give me 1 second. My cat is trying to climb onto my desk. I hope you can't hear his little bell. Anyhow, so yeah, I think it takes a lot of trust, and I think I'm very grateful for the fact that I am so evidence-based and have been sharing information for a long time, that I think the people that end up working with me, they've already built that and they have an established level of trust for the information. So it's almost like a little bit of hand holding in that sense. But I think the most valuable thing that women and some men can do is to really work on their self-development during that time. I think that majority of people, we'll say a lot of people, really struggle with their physique being part of their identity. I think a lot of women will get to a point where, they only feel valued and worthy if they are in a leaner, trimmer body composition. So a lot of that work that I do in conjunction with the actual, the act of doing the reverse diet and setting macros and doing the little increases, it's all about kind of retraining the mind and working on self-love and being compassionate for yourself and, talking to yourself almost like, what would you say to a friend if they said XYZ about their bodies? So a lot of it is working on the psychology piece and helping women to believe that, they are worthy. It's not conditional upon their body fat percentage. And some little distractions throughout that whole process are, refocusing away from physique and now looking at some strength performance-based goals. So rather than looking at the number on the scale as it relates to their body weight, but hey, let's look at the numbers on the barbell. How can we improve your strength? How can we get some PRs in the gym? And it's amazing the feedback that I've gotten and what I've experienced personally when you commit to a strength goal. Like for me to do my very first reverse diet, I signed up for a powerlifting competition because I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I want to have something that's, exciting me, that's motivating me to do this. And I could have woken up in the morning and felt really down about myself. The scale might have moved a little bit and you kind of are just like, oh yeah. But getting into the gym and hitting a PR and like that nothing beats that feeling. So I think having those performance-based goals and doing a lot of self-development and work on your psychology is pivotal during that time. It's not just about focusing on the food.
That's a perfect answer. I have to agree with the point. Fitness performance. I see it in my clients when they focus also on how much I could have, how much I ran in 1 hour, how much I lifted in the session, etc. That it really helps, because it is not only that even in dieting, when you stop losing fat, sometimes it happens. If they see some progress in gym, it is okay. I think the people need just some progress, any progress, and they are okay with that, at least in my opinion. And how do you battle with your tastes during menstruational cycle? Or let's say if someone has a problem with emotionally eating, binge eating, how to solve it without overeating and then going for 5 hours in gym, or running 5 hours, or these extremes?
Yeah. And honestly, that would be 90% of the people that I worked with. So again, first and foremost, for anybody that is struggling with their eating and their relationship with food, maybe they're somebody that just has disordered eating, not necessarily an eating disorder, but they feel like it is kind of taking over their life. And there is actually a chart or a questionnaire that we can give to people that will help them kind of define like how much it is impacting on their day-to-day living. And then we can kind of start to address some of those issues. But first off, always refer out to mental health specialists. I've done that for the longest time. And personally, I neglected to do that for myself. And if I could turn back time personally, and speaking as somebody that suffered from anorexia, binge eating disorder, and bulimia when I was younger, from the age of 15, and I struggled with it till I was 28 years old. So I avoided getting help for the longest time because I felt like Holly's got a degree. She's a nutritionist and a dietitian. She's a sporty person. She should have her shit together. Excuse my French.
No,
But there was a lot of guilt and shame that I felt because it was like, I can't control this. Like, what's wrong with me? But as soon as I actually started getting therapy on a regular basis, I'd basically do it like one-on-one coaching every week, like I would for a nutrition client. That was a game changer for me. Just having somebody to talk to about it and validate certain emotions and feelings, and also, give you tools to if you're feeling a certain way, how about we try this? Using different questionnaires and sheets to, before you eat a meal. This is an example of one of the tools that I use with clients and that I've used personally. It's basically a hunger fullness chart. So before you sit down to a meal, and this is particularly beneficial for people with binge eating disorder, rate your hunger. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how hungry are you? And you have to, be honest with yourself. So if you're, pretty ravenous, then it's like, okay, well, when I finish this meal, where would I like to be on the fullness scale, 1 to 10? So, your logical brain's like, well, I don't want to be stuffed full because I know that that's not comfortable. So you pick a score, and then essentially it's slowing you down. It's bringing your mind and awareness to the forefront, which is one of the things that tends to escape people that are struggling with binge eating. It's like their emotions are taking over, and they end up feeling like they're eating unconsciously, like it's happening without their consent. So it slows them down, and then it also gets them really paying attention to their fullness. So they make a meal, then they can reassess, based on that meal that I have just eaten, am I close to where I want it to be? And if I am, that's when you go, cool, I walk out of the kitchen. And if I am still hungry, I might make myself a little bit more. So it's kind of learning to eat a little bit more intuitively, slow you down and get you thinking and being aware of the present moment.
You're a really good coach, I think. Really, you have a great answers, and you also speak about psychology, not only about nutritional science, and that's great thing, I think. Holly, how much time should you invest in cardio during your contest prep? Let's say as a beginning. I know it's individual, but how much? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And honestly, my answer, this is what I hate saying this, but it depends. So I think it depends on a number of things. So first off, what is the client's or the individual's current cardio activity levels like? So I've had people that they've come to me to do a contest prep, and they are already doing like 3 45-minute, moderate intensity sessions a week. They go and do like a spin class, and it's an easy ride. But I'll have other clients that come to me and they're just hitting step targets. They're doing 8,000 steps a day, every day, and that's it. So the goal is really to diet down on as higher calories as possible and on as little exercise, cardio as possible, while still achieving your target rate of weight loss. So if you're doing a competition, or maybe you're just dieting because you want to lose some weight for an event in 12 months or something, I don't know. Let's say you want to lose 20 pounds, and you start and you're already doing 1 45-minute cardio session. You would want to make first an adjustment to your diet, create that calorie deficit. And let's say you've divided that 20 pounds over 20 weeks. So each week your goal, roughly speaking, is to lose a pound a week. If you can just make a change to your diet and lose that 1 pound, don't change anything about your cardio. Just keep it the same. And continue to stay on those same higher calories until your rate of loss plateaus. Only then do you consider maybe making another adjustment to your to your calories, And maybe, just maybe, if those calories are starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable, do you then bring in some more cardio? So the goal is to keep it as low as possible. Like, why would you want to do more than you need to? So I think for a lot of people, it's about, number one, trusting that that actually is the process, being patient and allowing, yourself to be consistent on a routine for a week or two. So sticking to the same calories and the same exercise schedule for a couple of weeks and just seeing what happens, rather than going, you know what, I don't trust that. I'm going to do 5 sessions this week and I'm going to cut my calories all at once. Like, you're potentially setting yourself up for failure. So it is very independent. But I mean, working with clients over the years, I am actively trying to get people, as they reverse diet, which we just talked about, to kind of do away with any planned cardio, unless, of course, that's part of their sports. Maybe they're an athlete in a professional sport, or maybe they really enjoy it because they do a session with their girlfriends and that's their social outing for the week. So that's bringing them joy, not necessarily something that they're doing, to lose weight. So outside of those things, I really try to wind down the amount of cardio that people do in their reverse diet, so that then becomes this wonderful tool that we have to use when we start fat loss, because now we can not just manipulate our calories when we're dieting. We've got this handy tool to reach in and go, all right, I'm going to add a 30-minute stair meal session, or I'm going to add in this boxing class. So you don't want to have used up all your tools right at the beginning of the diet. So that's typically how I would approach fat loss.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. I think I use the same strategy. Of course, we focus on gym training with girls and boys, with anyone. And exactly, to lose fat on as many calories as possible. I think some people believe that it is somehow cool to have it the hardest as it possibly can be. So if I lose fat on 2,000 calories, let's make it 500, or do extremes, which are not sustainable. And then they will probably not get to the stage anyway. So
yes, yeah, I think it comes along with the territory of a lot of top performance athletes. I mean, I think some of the people and individuals that I've met over my career, some of the best athletes, like, there is a reason that they're the best, but they're also usually very extreme. So, it can play favorably if you need to get something done. But I always question the longevity of that mindset. And that doesn't just relate to nutrition and fitness goals. It's like to anything, like, financial goals, personal relationship goals. It's like, if you want to date somebody, you're not going to go in screaming and try and get them to marry you straight up. Like, you want to have a couple dates first, slow it down, So, finance, that's the same kind of thing. You want to pace your savings rather than trying to save your entire paycheck up front. Extremism never tends to work very well, especially not long term. So yeah,
that's true. How would you choose the right personal trainer or nutritionist? Many girls are listening to this and they are thinking, who should I hire? There is so many of these people. How should I choose one?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for the most part, looking for somebody that actually has a degree in some kind of nutritional sciences or exercise science. That's usually a great place to start. So if they've been to college, university, and that's what they've studied for numerous years. Of course, then, you can go up that and you've got someone that's done honors, or they've got a PhD, like they've specified research in a topic related to nutrition. That said, I have definitely met a lot of coaches out there who haven't necessarily gone to university for nutrition sciences. They might have done multiple different certifications, or some kind of what's the other term that you guys use? Anyway, it's just like a different type of education. It's not college certified. But, they've applied themselves to the art of body composition or physique composition. and they are following the scientists. So, they're good learners, but they maybe didn't have the financial means to go to college, or they're coming to the field of nutrition later in life and it doesn't make sense for them to go back. But they're getting their information from people that are experts in the field. So, yeah, I think anything that comes in extremes, like if you're listening to people on social media and watching their posts, anyone that seems overly dogmatic about one particular thing, like carb zealots or like keto zealots, they're very, close-minded. They just want to focus on one thing. That tends to suggest that there is a little bit of bias, skewed towards that. So I'm always on the lookout for anybody that is saying things like, you can never eat this, or this is bad, or, this is the only way. So we know, like, science is available to us now. So there are many ways to do things successfully. And I'm just very cautious of people that are very dogmatic about one particular strategy, like fasting or something like that.
Or when the coach trying to sell you any supplement as a first thing they do. I think that's a warning also.
Yes, yeah. I think there are a lot of people that are trying to make a quick buck. And I mean, I definitely did that when I was younger, but I didn't just sign up to be like an affiliate for any company, or I wasn't trying to make money off any supplement. Like, I was always a little bit skeptical myself. I was like, I don't want to be, representing a company that might have people like that are just, selling something and fear mongering. Like, I didn't want to be associated with that either. So yeah, I think it pays to do your research. Or just look at yours and our Instagram following and see who we follow, because they're usually the people that are evidence based.
That's a good advice, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got close to 200,000 followers on Instagram, and I follow like 300 people. That's it. So just go look at that.
I follow also only you, Mr. Norton, of course, and Stuart Phillips, Bill Campbell.
Yes,
the scientists. When I open the Instagram, I want to read nutritional or fitness scientific info, not see some pornographic pictures, etc. So, you know what I mean.
I'm definitely a lifetime learner. My social media feed is pretty much all things that I can learn from. I very rarely am on there just kind of scrolling the gram. I can't say the same for Lane, my husband. He and I actually have had a little bit of a fun cats of Instagram feud lately. So I've either got cats or educational stuff that I'm learning from. So yeah, unless you were looking at my following and came across cat memes, you can be safe that everything else is fairly evidence-based. So
I'm glad that there are people like you and the scientists who can spread the information via the internet, because before 20 years before, I would never get to the info like this. And I don't have a college degree for fitness and nutrition, but I really love it, and I try to study every day.
Yeah.
So it is good for me also to be better, even though I don't have a degree, of course.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm right there with you. I remember when I was 18, kind of going in to do college, and Instagram didn't exist. I think I had MySpace and maybe just Facebook. And there was really very little way to connect with people. And I grew up in Australia. So to try and like reach people outside of my own country and that were, experts, it was like, where do you start? So now at least we have a way to kind of follow the trail of breadcrumbs through someone's social media. And that's how I actually met Lane. I came across his information on a YouTube channel, on his YouTube channel, like back in 2010. So I wish
how
that
did you
we
meet,
had
by the way, on some expo, I believe.
Pardon?
How did you meet with Mr. Norton at some expo?
Oh, yeah. So we actually met at the Arnold's Australia. So he was on tour at the time, traveling around doing seminars, nutrition training camps. And his sponsor, which at the time was Iron Tanks, we still are sponsored by them, which is our accessory company. So all of our lifting gear, our apparel, they had flown him over to do it. And that was my best friend, or one of my best friends from college. And he had invited me to the Arnold's to be at his booth to talk shop nutrition with customers. And I actually interviewed Lane, or I went to interview Lane, and still haven't got the interview, but now I'm married to him. So yeah, we just met at the Arnold's and instantly hit it off. So
I think he owes you the interview.
Yeah, I know. I'm still waiting.
Okay, Holly, last question, if I can,
Sure.
of course. I also always I ask people who come to my podcast to give one advice to anyone, anything you would like to everyone to know or to do from your point of view, which you think would help them to have better life, health, or relationship, anything.
Yeah, goodness. I think that one of the most valuable things anybody can do is seek professional counseling or therapy. And that doesn't just relate to, you know, potentially like an eating disorder or something like that. This is just for general health and well-being. It's so valuable to be able to have somebody, you know, communicate with you with non-bias information that helps you reflect on your own character, that helps reflect and give you information on self-development, and that can guide you to be a better person. And I think if you can do that, those skills that you learn won't just pay off in like your personal lives. It will pay off in every domain of our life, whether it's finances, relationships, your health and fitness goals. Like, you will just become a better person. So I know this is really left of center for what we were talking about today, but get therapy. Take away the stigma.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Is there anything you would like to tell to our listeners? Anything I missed?
Yeah, no, that's okay. I think, guys, if you enjoyed talking with us today, my social media handle is Holly T. Baxter. So that's my Instagram handle. It's also the same for my YouTube channel. I have a lot of educational information on there, completely free, that will help you. Check out our nutrition coaching app, Carvin Diet Coach. That has been phenomenal. We have over 45,000 subscribers using that. And I guess our supplement line, Outwork Nutrition, as well. So you can find all the links on my Instagram page to everything that we do. But
I will mention your Instagram, of course. Thank you very much. Really, thank you very much for accepting this. I'm really honored to have you on my podcast.
Yeah, I hope that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, of course I enjoyed it. It was very good. Okay, perfect. So thank you very much. Have a productive and fine day, and say hello, please, to Mr. Norton for me. That I really admire him. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.